Okay, let me just tell our audiences for context here that it's earlier this year in July that the state of Karnataka saw a changeover. So until now, it was ruled by the BJP. The Congress has now been in power for 6 months plus. I also want to tell you audiences that the BMC order that is in the center of all of this, that order came out in 2018. This is the order that first said that 60% of signages need to be in Kannada. It's around these orders that this group, the KRV, led the protests that we saw taking place on Wednesday. Now, with that context, let's go over to our two panelists right now, the BJP and the Congress. Let's start with Bhavya Narasimhamurthy, spokesperson for the Congress. Ma'am, I just want to ask you, let's start off, ma'am, I'll just get your opinion, the BJP's opinion, then we'll go deeper into the conversation. Ma'am, I want to understand from you, much has been said about the fact that when your leader's initial statements came, so DK Shivkumar, for example, when he responded a few hours after the entire incident had taken place, he, instead of condemning what had taken place, he said that yes, signages do need to be 60% in Kannada. Ma'am, later we saw condemning statements from the Chief Minister, from the Deputy Chief Minister, but many questioned why the initial responses of the Congress leaders were not stronger. Ma'am, do you have anything to say for that?
There are two issues here which we need to isolate. One thing is about the Kannada signboards, right? We need to protect our heritage, we need to protect our language, and because of which we have come up with this order. And we have to defend our government when it comes to the order and the implementation of it. But when it comes to law and order, our government respects peaceful protests and campaigns, and not the people who take law and order in their hands. We definitely condemned the way these outfits went on a rampage and vandalized a lot of commercial establishments. It was very wrong. One, because as a government we had given 28th February as the last day to change the signboards and all that, and after that, according to law, whether we are going to impose fine or whatever, we would have done that. These organizations, they are meant to create awareness. They have no rights to take law and order in their hands.
Sure.
So there are two issues. One, our DCM or the Home Minister or the Chief Minister, we defended our order that yes, signboards need to be put up. When the question was about, is this important that Kannada boards are there? Yes, it is important. But that doesn't mean as government or any minister have, supported this kind of vandalism.
Okay.
No way we would encourage that.
Can I just ask you, ma'am, the KRV President Narayana Gowda, who's right now in custody, what's the government's plan there? Because of that deadline, that 24-hour deadline, what is your government's stance regarding that? Are you going to respect it? What's the plan there, ma'am?
First thing is, we respect democracy and constitution. According to which, according to law, whatever law will take its course. It's not the government. The law will take its course.
Okay.
He has been taken into custody, and whatever the law applies, that is how we are going to go by it.
Okay. Is that a yes or a no, though, ma'am? You're saying he will not be let out of custody. I just want a clear statement, ma'am. I'm not going
to... So the problem here is, I can't give you a statement like that unless, the courts and there is a procedure to it.
Okay.
Whether he'll be let out or based on what, whether he'll be still kept in custody. Based on what? That's up to the court.
Okay. Let me just go over now, ma'am, to Lakshmi Ashwin Gowda, who's from the BJP. Ma'am, we just heard from a BJP leader. We're playing out visuals right now of protesters taking down civic infrastructure on the left side of our screens right now. We've just played out a BJP leader saying that they shouldn't have been arrested. Ma'am, why is the BJP making statements like that when we can see the violence that's being wrought?
Thank you for having me here, Toya. The Congress government in Karnataka can be better described as having administrative paralysis, lack of law and order, that is lawlessness, and the lack of political will to to address the regional aspirations of the people, to regional interests, to protect our identity, regional identity, to protect our language, to protect our water. The way they have mishandled the Kaveri issue shows the lack of interest in the political will and the lack of conviction to stand by the legitimate aspirations of the activists. They have allowed, their government's law and order has completely failed that. They have allowed vandalism to occur, hooliganism to occur. There is, of course, there is a fine line between the activism and the hooliganism. They couldn't prevent the hooliganism, and they failed in addressing the regional aspirations and the legitimate aspirations of the activists. the regional interests like land, language, water, of course, they need to be addressed. Standing above the party politics, the present Chief Minister, Mr. Siddaramaiah, should show his conviction to stand above the party politics and to legitimately address the issue and to solve this issue, particular issue.
Okay. Ma'am, I appreciate your point, but I need you to give me succinct answers here to two questions. Why do we have a BJP leader saying that they shouldn't have been arrested? Is that your stance too? And is that the BJP's stance that they should not have been arrested? Just first give us a clear answer there, ma'am.
First and foremost, they have failed as a government to protect the law and order of a state.
Ma'am, not disagreeing with you.
These activists have turned to hooligans and they had to do the vandalism. The arrest of them is the correct thing. Arresting the activists is the correct thing.
You're disagreeing with the BJP
Beforehand, they
leader.
should have properly addressed their legitimate aspirations. Beforehand, they should have made sure the establishment to use the Kannada boards. Beforehand, they should have made their conviction to
Let me ask you a quick follow-up question then, ma'am, and then we'll go to the Congress, because you're making this point over here that it was the Congress that failed in law and order, and I do want to ask them more questions there. But first, let me just ask you one more question, ma'am. 2018 is when that BMC order came out, ma'am. The BJP was in power till earlier this year. If Karnataka's BJP was so passionate about this, why didn't they do more when they were in power to make sure that every signage across Bangalore was in Kannada?
Of course, ma'am, as I've already told, there are multiple stakeholders, the ruling dispensation, the opposition dispensation, civil society, these activists. When we were in the power, we have amicably solved the issue. We have never allowed any issue to escalate beyond the proportions. We have never allowed our law and order to go to blown out of the proportion. We have never allowed these kind of vandalism.
One second, but I'm not talking about that. I've been to Bangalore. All signages are not in Kannada. I'm just asking you, if the BJP was in power all these years, and if you cared so much about this, why couldn't you do this then? That's what I'm asking.
These activists, they're waging their war because of their Phoenix Mall issue that has been very recently established, and they couldn't ensure, the present dispensation couldn't ensure the establishment.
And you're still talking about the Congress right now. I'm talking about the BJP when you were in power. That's what I'm asking about. We'll talk about the Congress in a second.
We have, of course, amicably addressed all those issues, ma'am. We have allowed our law and order to function properly. Our administrative machinery was intact. Our administrative machinery was so efficient. We have allowed everything, and we have addressed all these issues, regional issues, especially the language, water, land, amicably, standing above our party politics. We have never ever shown our myopic vision in this.
I'm not sure you're answering my question.
Congress government stance is pretty clear that they are busy saving that the most fractured, the most myopic INDIA block ahead of the Lok Sabha elections. They are not here to stand by. They're not showing any conviction to stand by the people of Karnataka. They're not showing any conviction to stand by the legitimate aspirations of the activists.
Let's go back to